For a while, many people have been clamoring for a Legend of Zelda game where you actually, play as Zelda. And I don't care what you say, we've never gotten one before. But now, with the release of Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, came out almost a week ago, sorry about the delay guys, but you are actually able to play as the title character in her own adventure that does something very different from the rest of the series, but does it very well. But let's talk about it. Hi guys, DPX here, reviewing today Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Now before we get started, you know what to do. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell, leave a comment. Starting off with the good, of course, the gameplay. There is, running around the overworld and getting from point A to point B, and then there's actually, the combat. Just being able to control Zelda, she controls very well. But in combat, this is where Echoes of Wisdom sets itself apart from the rest of the Zelda games, as you have a new ability called the Echo. I mean, it's what the game is named after. How this mechanic works is basically any item, any enemy, anything in the game you encounter, you can use your magic staff to get it, and now you can use the enemy or the item as an echo. For example, if you beat an enemy, you can now collect the enemy and use it to fight other enemies. Or if you see an item, for example, a bed, like you've probably seen already, you can use that to help solve puzzles by maybe making a ladder with the beds, as, like I said, you might have seen online. I remember when this game was first announced and people were excited for a Zelda game where you play as Zelda, but were a little disappointed that the one time that we get one of those, she focuses on magic as opposed to combat. But after playing, I feel like this helps Echoes of Wisdom stand out more amongst the rest of the Zelda series, as it's not just one major entry where you play as Zelda, but the gameplay is unique too. But that's not all for the gameplay. Slight spoiler ahead, but it's introduced so early on in the game, and it's such an integral part and mechanic of the rest of the game, so I feel like it is worth mentioning. Very early into the game, you unlock something called Sword Fighter mode, where you basically turn into Link, and you have a meter that can run out, so you want to use Sword Fighter mode wisely. But I really like this, as on the surface, it's an easy way to deal damage, but you don't want the meter to run out, so you want to strategize, which I think makes the combat more engaging. There is one other mechanic I should mention though, and that is Bond. It's kind of like Fuse from Tears of the Kingdom, except this time you're just grabbing items or enemy just to place them somewhere. It helps a lot when solving puzzles and can even help fighting enemies. You can use the Bond against an enemy to basically hold them hostage as your Echo fights them, or even use it to drop them off a cliff and avoiding fighting them altogether, which could be very funny. I also really love the boss fights. Some were annoying, and there was one in particular at the beginning that took me way longer to beat than even the final boss, but overall, I thought the boss fights were fun. Then there are the characters. Obviously, you play as Zelda, and you have to save Link, but I'm talking about, the other characters that you meet throughout the game, like the NPCs. Despite the characters only speaking through text dialogue, they are still very expressive and charming, and just adds a lot to, a lot of character to the game. But I really like Tree, or Tri. T-R-I, I don't know. It's a little fairy thing that follows you, kind of similar to Navi, but not nearly as annoying. And I really like Tree, or Try. Which one is it? Do you guys know? As for other things I liked, I really like the visual style of the game. I feel like we don't get too many games that look like this. Almost like a claymation looking game. It's not, maybe that's not the best way to describe it, but you see what I'm talking about. You can see the game. The music is good too. When does Zelda not have good music? This game has some good, kind of remixes and motifs of, Zelda music that is iconic to the series, and I loved it. Moving on to the mixed aspects of the game, the one thing I'm mixed on is when you get towards the end of the game. I found the final boss fun and all, but it's a whole section of the game leading up to the final boss. That's not what I'm mixed on, and I'm not mixed on the section leading up to the final boss, because I found that fun and all. But what I am mixed on, though, is there is a major mechanic that you have throughout the whole game, but you lose it by the time you get to this part of the game. So you spend the whole game fighting bosses in one way, but by the end of the game, you play it a little differently. It's only in the mix because I still enjoyed it, but I just thought it was weird. Moving on to the bad, there are a few things, but none really kill the game for me. One is there is one boss fight towards the beginning of the game, I kind of mentioned it earlier briefly, that is just way more annoying than any of the other boss fights throughout the rest of the game. And notice how I don't even say it's more difficult, but instead annoying, because for the whole fight, you are pretty much just waiting to attack, which makes it more tedious than any other boss fight in the game. After I beat it, to be fair, I soon forgot about it, so it won't kill the game for me, like I said. Another issue is one that many people have brought up, and it's the UI. Not particularly that Echoes of Wisdom has bad UI, because I mean it's designed well enough, but you kind of have to rely on it a lot. Like when you want to select your echo, you have to open up a menu and go through a list of echoes that by the end of the game you can have like hundreds of them, and you have to scroll through just to pick one. I got used to it, but I do wish there was an easier way and a quicker way to select your echo. And lastly, the frame rates. I'm not a frame rate snob, and I feel like it's normally something that people pretend to care about. Yes, I'm dying on that hill. But in Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, the frame rate will often chug to a noticeable degree. And one thing I noticed is that it rarely happened during like boss fights or anything where you would expect the game to chug, like when there's a lot going on, but rather normally when I ran around the overworld. That's weird. I guess it's because there's a lot of detail and a lot of like leaves blowing and birds flying, and there's some enemies that you can fight, but yeah, I just found that strange. Even though selecting echoes is needlessly convoluted and the game has some frame rate issues, Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is more than worth the legendary series. The echo mechanic helps the game set itself apart from the rest of the Zelda franchise in a great way, whether it be during combat or puzzle solving, while Sword Fighter mode helps give the player what they normally want from a Zelda game. The bosses were fun too, along with the music being great as usual, and the visual style being great too. In the end, I'm going to give Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom an 8.5 out of 10. So that was my review for Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. I beat this game like quite a few days ago, so I'm sorry about the delay with this one. But yeah, what do you guys think about this game? Do you guys like it, not like it? Have you guys played it, not played it? You guys not played the game? Do you want to play it, not want to play it? Anything about Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, let me know down below. Anyways, be sure to like this video, come subscribe, or I will kidnap you.